Hello everyone, this is part 64 of What If Naruto Was the Devil Ninja, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Be sure to like and subscribe, it gives me more motivation. Enjoy. Rias caught sight of Nyx long before she reached Syrex. The woman looked like a bolt of pure darkness racing across the sky. She was moving fast, but not so fast that Rias couldn't track her movements. Kiba moved much faster than this. Akeno, stop her. Yufufufu, leave it to me. Akeno threw out her hand and summoned a large burst of lightning that exploded from her fingertips and raced across space. This normally wouldn't have been enough to stop a goddess like Nyx, and indeed, the bolt of darkness continued traveling as if it didn't matter whether it was hit by holy lightning. However, Rias quickly infused her power of destruction into the lightning and Nyx was forced to halt in her tracks. The bright reddish-yellow lightning bolt tore through the spot right in front of her, missing by a few meters. That was quite the powerful combo, Nyx said as she turned to Rias and her group. Rias, Akeno, Asia, and Fafnir, who'd been summoned and was sticking close to Asia, intercepted the woman before she could move further. I know you're planning to kill my brother and the others while they're maintaining this barrier, but I won't let you lay a hand on them, Rias declared. Do you really think a couple of children can stop me? Asked Nyx. The Red Dragon Emperor might be strong enough to go toe-to-toe with me, but the rest of you simply don't have what it takes. We'll see about that, Rias said through narrowed eyes. Summoning the power of destruction to either hand, Rias prepared to battle against the primordial Greek goddess of darkness. Devil Ninja. Hades had decided to go after Indra. He was the second most powerful person among their enemies, but the most powerful among them, Shiva, was nowhere to be found. And so with that knowledge in mind, Hades went to remove the current most dangerous threat present. But he was stopped. Boost, 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 boost. Boost, 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 boost. Divide, 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 divide. I say rushed forward, his body boosted without limit as the red scale mail of his balance breaker gleamed in the light, and attempted to pummel Hades. Of course, even with his power divided by Vali's divine dividing, Hades was still a god and one of the 10 strongest beings in existence. He shifted through the air and raised his staff. Ice-I's fist slammed into the staff and power burst from the tip, sending the young man flying. Do you really think two whelps like you can defeat me? I'm not like that weakling, Rizvim. To someone like Hades, Rizvim was just a pathetic coward. Despite being the son of the original Lucifer, he lacked the power to contend with people like Syrex and Ajuka. Those two were threats. That was why Hades had used the Ark of the Covenant to create an unbreakable law that they couldn't attack him. It was happy coincidence that the 3 Hindu gods were also affected by it. It doesn't matter. Even if you are a lot stronger than Rizvim, I'm still gonna break that skeleton face of yours, Ice declared. Ha ha. Knowing you're more powerful than my grandfather makes me want to fight you that much more, Vali admitted. Hades would have clicked his tongue if he had won, but he didn't say anything else as he swung his staff through the air and slammed it into Ice-I's dragon shot. This was just a distraction, of course, and the real attack came when Vali appeared before him like a phantom. Even then, Hades did not react with surprise. Instead it was Vali who received the surprise when his limbs became completely restrained. Magic circles appeared around him and bound him in an unbreakable prison. He then received a staff to the face. A loud crunching noise echoed across the battlefield as Vali's helmet shattered. Spurts of blood flew in arcs as the grandson of Rizvim was blasted away at the speed of sound. Holy S! Ice exclaimed in shock at seeing Vali get pummeled so easily. Unfortunately, in his distracted state, he was unable to do anything as Hades teleported to him. He only noticed what was happening when a shadow loomed over him, and by then it was too late. Hades thrust his staff forward. It struck Ice in the chest, blowing apart his armor and sending him rocketing back. White filled his vision for a moment, making Issei wonder if he'd passed out. When he came to, it was to find someone holding him like he was some princess in a play, though the monkey-like grin on this man's face was certainly not that of a gallant prince. Hello, Sleeping Beauty. You took quite the hit there. Feeling good, you kosher. Ack, Biko. Issei leapt out of Biko's arms. He glared at the monkeyman, whose grin only widened. What the hell, man? Why am I waking up in your hairy-ass arms and not the BS of a beautiful woman? Biko laughed. You're quite the character. Of course, even at a time like this, you would only think of BS. I guess that's why you're the Oppai dragon. Issei wanted to glare hatefully at Biko and rant some more, but a massive explosion detonated somewhere above their heads, sending a powerful shockwave rippling across the space. Digging in his heels, Issei looked up and found. Holy S. What the F is that? That was referring to Varley, who was still decked in armor, but it looked vastly different from what Issei remembered. It reminded him of the Juggernaut Drive's armor, but this was entirely silver and looked far more majestic. The Juggernaut Drive was chaos given form, hatred made manifest, and this possessed none of that. Pretty impressive, isn't it? Said Biko. Varley got really hyped after seeing your Cardinal Crimson promotion and began training like a maniac to perfect this SK. It's called Empereo Juggernaut Overdrive. It's far superior to the Juggernaut Drive and doesn't consume his lifespan either. Even as Biko spoke, Hades launched a magical attack that was filled with a death-like aura at Varley, but with a wave of his hand, the White Dragon Emperor unleashed his own power. The attack launched by Hades was compressed within less than a second and disappeared. It looks like you've gained a new power. I wonder how long you've been keeping this trump card close to your chest, Hades said. He didn't appear concerned despite seeing his attack get erased. Not long, Varley replied easily, his tone conversational. I only just recently mastered this power. You are actually the first person I've used it on. You should feel proud. Kya ha ha ha. Why would I feel anything other than contempt? This is just the pitiful attempt of a disgusting, filthy devil trying to defeat me. You will like all those who came before you. We'll see about that. Varley burst forward to attack Hades, but the god of the underworld took all of his attacks head-on without flinching. Issei only now realized how much more powerful Hades was than him and Varley. Even with his powers being divided in half so many times, even after Varley unleashed his newest and most powerful SK, he was still knocking his enemy around like a pinball. That Hades is certainly tough, Biko commented with a whistle. The rest of us came to lend you a hand, but we can't even get close to a fight like that. He turned to Issei. What are you gonna do, Red Dragon Emperor? Isn't that obvious? I'm going to help Varley kick that god douche's ass. Issei clenched his hand into a fist as he activated his own super power, Cardinal Crimson Promotion. This was the Scale Mail's Queen form. It changed the color of his armor from red to crimson. The ground cracked underneath him as the power surrounding his body increased, forcing Biko to leap back. Looking back up at Varley and Hades as they fought, Issei narrowed his eyes, invisible behind his visor, and blasted off the ground so quickly it was like the earth had been struck by a bomb. Everything exploded underneath him as he broke through the sound barrier and plowed into Hades just as the god prepared to launch another attack at Varley. The attack sent them both flying. Yet even though he'd been caught by surprise, Hades remained calm and slammed his staff into Issei's chest. The attack landed with a solid thud that forced him apart. Unlike last time, however, this attack didn't hurt and only pushed Issei away from his enemy. It also didn't deter Issei, who fired off a beam from the wings of his armor that struck Hades and exploded. HMPH. You two really are pests, you know that. I can't believe a couple of sea-munching little kids are giving me so much trouble, Hades said with a snort. Issei could only grimace when he saw that his attack had done practically nothing to Hades. Damn it, what the hell is this guy made of? Asked Issei. Varley floated over to Issei and crossed his arms as he stared at the god of the S. That's a god for you. Hades isn't one of the strongest beings in the world for nothing. Even dividing his power doesn't do as much as it should. So how should we do this? Asked Issei. I'm not sure we can do this as we are, Varley admitted. Hades is several times stronger than both of us combined. We'll need to train and get even stronger if we want to have a shot at beating him, but right now our goal is simply to keep him from reaching Indra. I think if it's holding him off, we can do that, though we'll need help. As Varley said that, a teleportation circle appeared in the air next to them and outleapt a beast that Ise recognized with ease. It was a 10-meter tall wolf with gray fur, sharp fangs, and a sleek body with powerful muscles. You know, I completely forgot you captured that thing during the attack on the stadium, Ise admitted. Varley shrugged. I haven't had much reason to bring him to battle. Now let's do what we can to hold this guy off. Of course, I won't complain if we manage to K him either. Just try to hold me back, you whelps. Hades made his disdain for them and their conversation obvious as he unleashed another attack using magic and his powerful aura. Varley quickly compressed the attack with his new power, while Ise and Fenrir went in to bring the fight to Hades. The second round of the battle between the two heavenly dragons and Hades had commenced. Devil Ninja. Shiva was beginning to think he had made a mistake when he decided to take on Yami after he successfully sealed Trihexa inside of himself. The beast had not been at full strength, having been sealed for so long, but when combined with Yami's own considerable powers, that hardly mattered. Yami chuckled as he created a small raisin shuriken in his hand and threw it at Shiva. The almost casual motion belied the threat this attack possessed, and Shiva already knew from experience that getting hit with it would be incredibly painful. He moved to dodge. The raisin shuriken, however, swerved to follow him, and his eyes widened. They widened further when Yami created a second raisin shuriken and threw it. I never could have imagined Trihexa would have so much power, Yami said casually as though conversing with a good friend. If I had to judge its power simply based on what I feel, I'd say it is even stronger than Otsutsuki Kaguya. Ah, but you don't know who that is, do you? Well, it doesn't matter if you do or don't. Please keep doing your best not to s. I'd like to test out the extent of my powers before Naruto and Office arrive. The arrogance this boy spoke with galled Shiva, but he couldn't respond back with a biting comment because he was so busy trying to do just what Yami said. Matters were only made worse when Yami created two more raisin shurikens and added them into the mix. Realizing that he couldn't remain on the defensive any longer, Shiva released his godly aura and solidified it into something similar to Tuki. He flinched only slightly as he slammed his fist into one raisin shuriken. It exploded in his face and tried to engulf him in a torrent of cutting wind blades, but Shiva quickly phased backward as if he had teleported. Then he spun around and launched an aura-infused kick at another raisin shuriken that came at him from behind. It similarly exploded and Shiva once more vanished and reappeared somewhere else. The other two raisin shurikens were dealt with in a similar manner. That godly aura of yours is very impressive, but it looks like even you can't withstand an attack of this caliber so easily, Yami said with a smirk. Shiva gritted his teeth as he looked down at his hands and feet. Blood welled from hundreds of cuts on his hands and his shoes had been completely shredded to reveal his cut-up toes. He healed them with his powers and re-summoned a new pair of shoes, then looked at the grinning Yami with a dark expression. Those were my favorite shoes, he said to Yami, who merely shrugged. How is that my problem? If you don't want your designer's fashion getting ruined, don't wear them when you fight. Shiva hated how this man had a comeback for everything he said, but more than that, he hated how little effort Yami was putting into this battle. It was clear to him that the creature before him was not taking this fight seriously. It made Shiva want to gape in wonder. Trihexa should not have been powerful enough to threaten Shiva like this. He was certain that, should it come down to a fight, he could defeat Trihexa, though it would take a lot of effort and most of his power. However, now he was battling with the one who had sealed the apocalyptic beast inside of himself, and not only was he having trouble, but his opponent looked like he wasn't struggling at all. Are you wondering why I'm so much more powerful than you? Asked Yami with a grin. Shiva didn't quite scoff, but he also didn't hide his disdain. Of course not. But Yami answered like he hadn't heard the god. The answer is actually very simple. I'm not originally from this world, so I don't have to follow this world's rules. You might not know this, but at my peak, I would have power close to Indra. You might be more powerful than him, but it isn't by so much that you can afford to underestimate him. Even at half strength, I am still far more powerful than most people. When you combine my power with Trihex's. So you're saying that you are actually one of the most powerful people in this world, and that becoming Trihex's, Jinchuriki, was it? That by becoming Trihex's Jinchuriki, your power has risen far above what even I can match? Asked Shiva. Well, something like that, Yami admitted. Naruto had always been a powerful individual even back in his own world. When he arrived in this world, his body had been ravaged and unable to repair itself because he was not a part of this world and the laws that governed it prevented the revival of his power, but that changed when Rias revived him as a devil. Naruto slowly began to regain the strength he lost. Of course, Naruto had then inadvertently created Yami by using Sage Mode. He couldn't have possibly known that activating Sage Mode would force him to take in the world's malice, or that all the malice along with a good portion of his chakra would go into the creation of Yami, but that was neither here nor there. The point was that Naruto had always possessed extraordinary power even without Kurama. That power would have allowed him to stand at the top of this world, but when combined with Trihex's incredible power that was on par with beings like Kurama, Office, and Great Red, it became a force so great that not even the most powerful creatures in this world could stand up to him. That included Shiva. TCH. For the longest time, Shiva had remained relaxed and eloquent. While he did enjoy the occasional bout, he didn't much care for war and preferred to instead focus on more interesting pursuits. However, he was also a god of destruction. He respected strength, both pure physical power and strength of character. Naruto had strength in terms of both character and raw power. He was an interesting man whom Shiva would love to talk to over tea. This man, however, Naruto's other and darker half, lacked everything he appreciated about Naruto. He was strong, of that there were no doubts, but he only had strength and lacked character. Yami was just a ball of unfiltered hatred raging at the world because he couldn't contain his own feelings. Shiva would never approve of this man. Not that Yami would care, he was sure. Well, this has been a fun conversation, but it's time we move this along. Naruto and Office are coming, so I need to get ready and greet them both with a warm welcome, Yami said, and then he was suddenly gone. Shiva would have blinked at the speed this man displayed, except he couldn't. Not only was he not given the time to, but all the air from his lungs had disappeared as something struck him in the chest. He would have screamed were he capable of it. It felt like something was grinding away his chest, like his muscles and bones were being shredded apart with a blender. Lifted off his feet by the power that attacked him, Shiva was sent hurtling into the wall, slamming into it. Massive cracks spread across the wall. Blood splattered against the ground as it spewed from both his mouth and the gaping wound on his chest. Startled, Shiva looked down and saw his heart still beating within his chest. Yami's attack had torn through him like he was made of paper. If he hadn't protected himself at the very last second, that attack would have killed him. I was quite certain that would kill you. You gods are quite durable, Yami said as he walked slowly toward Shiva, a small ball of swirling energy gathering in the palm of his left hand. Well, even if my first attack didn't kill you, this one definitely will. As Shiva struggled to stand, Yami's shadow as he talked twisted and turned, changing from a human shape to one of a monster with 7 heads and 7 tails. It was a grotesque-looking shape. In most cases, seeing it wouldn't cause Shiva anything more than mild disgust, but now that he was on the verge of death, it sent a shiver down his spine. For the first time in his life, the god of destruction feared death. Time to S. Yami lifted his hand, which transformed into a monster and opened its mouth wide. Something like a flame gathered inside. It was far more than simple fire, however, and looked more to Shiva like the molten core of a planet covered in darkness. So much power was being compressed that Shiva knew without a doubt that he would S if this attack struck him. He prepared to use the last of his power to try and reflect the attack. Both he and Yami were surprised when a purplish barrier made of snakes suddenly appeared between them. Yami's attack set against the barrier, which rippled and undulated but held firm. Shiva gazed at the 3 people standing beside him, who had appeared without warning. One of them was a blonde man who looked nearly identical to Yami, Naruto, but the others were a pair of girls who looked similar but different. One was older, taller, and possessed an elegant figure, while the other looked like an elementary schooler. The one who had blocked the attack was none other than Office, who slowly lowered her hand and let the barrier she created dissipate. Looks like we made it just in time, Naruto said with a sigh before he turned to Shiva. Oi, you okay? I am, not quite okay, no, Shiva said, remembering the hole in his chest. Yeah, I can see that. Naruto nodded as he also realized how stupid his question had been. Don't worry, Lilith can heal you. She's still got a lot of power and can definitely fix you up. Shiva would have said something, but Naruto merely placed a hand on Lilith's head and rubbed it as he asked her to heal Shiva and promised candy if she did a good job, which caused the girl's full eyes to gleam somewhat. As the young-looking dragon god clone trotted over to him, Shiva found something humorous about all this and began chuckling. Lilith looked at him with a tilted head, but she said nothing and placed her hands over his chest, using the power of the infinite dragon god to heal him. He turned his attention to the confrontation about to take place. This promised to be very interesting. Hey there, Yami. Been well, Naruto. The contrast between the two was interesting. Naruto seemed almost congenial compared to the enraged Yami, who looked like he wanted to Naruto's tea open with a rusty spork. The hatred in his eyes was something that nothing could mask. What Shiva didn't quite understand was why Yami hated Naruto so much. Certainly, he was the darkness within Naruto's heart, which had separated from him and gained a life of his own, but should that be enough to provoke such a response? You do not know how long I have been waiting for this moment, Yami continued, a dark smile appearing on his face. With Trihexa sealed inside of me, I am now more than strong enough to KU. I will KU, El Kurama from your S-corpse, and merge him into Trihexa to become even stronger. Then I will replace you. I will become free of your shadow and not a single person in the world, in any world, will be able to harm me. Shiva blinked several times at this statement, then looked at Naruto, surprised to see an expression of pity etched on the normally cheerful boy's face. Don't look at me like that, Yami spat. It's disgusting. Yami, I know that your thoughts have been warped by the hatred of this world, Naruto said, hands opening and closing as they rested at his side. I understand. After coming to this world, you were barely conscious, and then you suddenly came to life after being flooded with an entire world's worth of hatred. It has warped you. We were never evil, never dark. We didn't want to K others or lord our power over them. Shut up, Yami growled. We just wanted to be loved. We didn't want to be alone anymore. I said shut up. Yami threw both of his hands forward. They changed into the heads of beasts and unleashed two fire attacks that were so powerful even Shiva flinched. Naruto did not flinch. His chakra shroud appeared around his body as he raised his hands and created something that looked like a swirling whirlpool of power. Both fireballs slammed into the whirlpool and were annihilated. Naruto lowered his hands and kept his calm expression as he stared into the eyes of the glaring Yami. Shiva didn't even realize he was holding his breath. I also know that words alone won't serve to bring you back. That's why I'm gonna do what I've always done and talk with my fists. Naruto pounded his fists together and grinned at his other half. I hope you are ready for this, Yami, because I'm gonna beat the S out of you and force you back into me. Devil Ninja. Sweat beaded on Sirex's scalp as he did his best to maintain the barrier. His peerage was now with him, having been summoned to add their power to his. Strange as it was to think about, he and Ajuka were actually the weakest ones in this group right now. How long must we maintain this barrier? Asked Grayfia. You can ask me that, but I really don't know, Sirex said. They were maintaining this barrier to keep Yami from breaking out, but even he didn't know how long they should keep it up. Until Shiva beat Yami. Was it even possible for him to defeat Yami? The power he felt coming from within the barrier was far more vast than anything he could have ever imagined. It was comparable to Office in her prime. As his thoughts turned to Office, the barrier trembled as a new power erupted from within. Sirex and the others gnashed their teeth together as they poured more power into the barrier. Cracks formed, were repaired, and then formed again. Several magic circles began winking out of existence, only to be remade less than a second later. However, with each magic circle they remade and crack they repaired, their own power waned. What was that? Asked Serta. Sirex smiled grimly. That was Naruto using Kurama's power. Let's maintain the barrier for a little while longer and hope Naruto can defeat Yami like this. Devil Ninja. Office flinched as the barrier she'd been maintaining shattered. She quickly put another one back up before the power being unleashed washed over her, Lilith, and Shiva. Right now she was the only one who could protect those two. Shiva was out of power and Lilith only had a fourth of the infinite dragon god's power. This is incredible, Shiva muttered in shock. I never imagined Naruto would have this much power. That's not his power, Office reminded him. Yes, I know. It belongs to the NT sealed inside of him. Shiva smiled as if to assure her that he was aware of Naruto's secrets. But he and the Denti are in perfect sync, and he's using its power as if he had been born with it. I am very impressed. Office didn't say anything as her eyes tracked Naruto and Yami as they fought across the space. The building had long since been destroyed by the clashing powers. It had been blasted away like leaves on the wind. The amount of power erupting from between the two had destroyed practically everything. It was honestly a wonder the island hadn't been completely annihilated by their battle. Naruto threw a Rasengan, which quickly expanded to be 4 times the size of a person, at Yami, but it was destroyed when his opponent created a wind blade and cut straight through it. This deterred neither Naruto nor Yami. A wind blade flew from Naruto's hand, but it was intercepted by another wind blade. As the two clashing forces exploded and created a loud concussive sound, Yami launched a Rasen Shuriken at Naruto. Naruto probably could have dealt with the Rasen Shuriken the same way Yami had, but instead, he let one of his truth balls intercept it. The black sphere appeared in front of Naruto, shifted into the shape of a shield, and blocked the attack, which scattered to the winds. Then Naruto rushed forward. He closed the gap between Yami and engaged the other man in a hand-to-hand battle. They seem to be about evenly matched, Shiva said after several seconds of observing the battle. But neither of them have gone all out, said Office. I imagine if they did, this entire island would be annihilated. It would. But that's not the reason they aren't going all out yet. Oh. Office was silent as Naruto received a punch to the chest, only to retaliate by kicking Yami square in the jaw. The two attacks blasted the pair away from each other. They skidded across the ground, stopped, then made a cross-shaped seal with their hands. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Nearly 24 clones suddenly appeared on both sides. The clone armies attacked each other as the original Naruto and Yami went back to engaging in a battle of fists and feet. Naruto and Yami are both ninja. A common practice among ninja is to apparently test your opponent's strength by holding back until your enemy reveals their secrets to you. Only after a ninja know all of their enemy's tricks will they attack to win. Seems a bit convoluted, but I understand the concept. Shiva nodded as he accepted her explanation. At that exact moment, a standstill took place between Naruto and Yami as they slammed a pair of Rasengans together. The force behind this should have pushed them apart, but the pair used chakra to stick their feet to the ground and were now pushing to overpower their enemy. Both were gritting their teeth hard enough to make the gums bleed. Ha, ha, just give up. You can't beat me. Ha, I should be the one saying that. Give it up, Yami. You'll never win. Shut the F up. I will win. I'll beat you and take your place as the real Naruto. Good luck with that. As they argued, the Rasengans in their hand quickly desolized and exploded, blasting them backward. They flipped around, landed on the ground, and pushed off it. The buildup of kinetic energy increased their speed, causing the pair to disappear before they once more lashed out at each other. Office flinched only a little when a massive shockwave slammed into her barrier. A few cracks appeared in the snake barrier, but she was able to repair them by pumping more power into it. These two won't be holding back for much longer, Office murmured. What should we do? Asked Shiva. Office shrugged. There isn't much we can do. Sirex and the others put up a barrier that prevents us from leaving this space, which means we can't leave until they bring it down. I suppose I could send us to the dimensional gap, but that would be dangerous in your current state. Lilith looked up to see the glimmering barrier shining above their heads. It was an impressive structure made from the combined power of several gods and 2 super devils. Office could probably break it if she wanted, but that would have involved wasting a lot of her newly regained power. It wasn't worth it. Just then, Naruto came up to her barrier. He grinned and tapped on it several times. Naruto, what are you? No. You aren't Naruto. One of his clones, asked Office. Yup. Listen, Office. I need a favor, the Naruto clone said without preamble. What favor? Asked Office. Do you think you can send Yami and me to the dimensional gap? You want to go to the dimensional gap? Nodding, Naruto explained his reasons. The longer this battle continues, the higher the chances of this city will be destroyed. To prevent that, I'd like you to send me and Yami to the dimensional gap, where we can both fight at full power to our heart's content. The dimensional gap was a location that lied between the worlds of Earth, Heaven, and the underworld. Many people considered it a void world since it was devoid of life. It was also the birthplace of her and Great Red. Since there was no life within the dimensional gap, Except Great Red, Naruto and Yami could go all out there without worrying about accidentally destroying the underworld. I can send you there, but it will be hard for me to send someone to the dimensional gap while I'm maintaining this barrier, Office admitted. I can maintain the barrier, Shiva said. Office glanced at the god as he stood up. Are you sure? Yes, I have recovered enough to at least do this much. Okay then. I'm dropping the barrier. Office lowered her hands and the purple barrier that she had been maintaining disappeared. Seconds before they could be swept away by a massive shockwave that suddenly erupted from the two fighting, Shiva raised his hands and a brilliant golden barrier appeared around them. Even the Naruto clone was protected by the barrier. There. Now do what you have to, Shiva said. I will, announced Office. Office narrowed her eyes and waited until Naruto and Yami were locked in together in the same place. Naruto must have already known what she wanted, for he locked hands with Yami to keep his other half from retreating. What the F are you doing? Let go. Let go of me. Naruto grunted several times as Yami kicked him in the chest, but he tenaciously kept their hands locked together as Office opened a black portal underneath them. It looked much more like a tear in the world than a portal. Either way, Naruto and Yami quickly sank into the portal and vanished. With a sigh, Office closed the portal moments later. We should let Sirex and the others know about what happened, though I'm sure they already have some idea, Office said. Naruto and Yami had been releasing so much power that she was sure everyone could feel it, and now they were both gone, taking all that power with them. Sirex must already be aware that the two were no longer present. However, it would be good to let him and the others know what exactly happened. I have no problems with this, said Shiva. Me neither, so long as I can get some candy, Lilith added. She'd been pretty quiet up until now. I'll see if Koneko has any candy she can give you, Office assured the girl. They found Sirex quite easily. The barrier had already been dissolved by the time they went in search of him. He was issuing orders to his peerage. It looks like Rias and her peerage are currently fighting against the Alliance of Hell. I want you all to lend them a hand. Graphia, you go help Eyes. The rest of you are going to split into teams of 2 and choose who you want to aid. I'd go myself, but the commandment from the Ark prevents me from attacking anyone from the Alliance of Hell. Hearing about what they were doing, Office interjected. You do not need to worry about Hades. I will take care of him. Sirex and his peerage turned to Office, none of them saying anything as they studied her. Their eyes widened a couple of seconds later. I see you've regained most of your power, Sirex said. He eyed Lilith for a moment before quickly shifting his gaze back to her. If you're going to help them, then I will gratefully accept it. Could you please help Ise and Vali take care of Hades? Leave that to me, Office said. But before that, I should let you all know about what happened. Since that was the main reason she had come to find him, Office informed Sirex that Naruto and Yami were now battling in the dimensional gap. Sirex accepted this with a nod, then asked her to help Ise and Vali in their battle against Hades. Graphia, since Office is going to help fight Hades, I want you to help Rias with her battle against Nyx, said Sirex. Leave it to me, Graphia said. Can I leave Lilith in your care? Asked Office. Of course. Very well, I'll be off. Oh, Lilith likes candy, so try and feed her some please. Okay. While Sirex looked like he'd been blindsided by the knowledge of Lilith's sweet tooth, he accepted the advice with a nod. Office flew off, leaving Shiva and Lilith behind, tracking the power she recognized as belonging to Hades to its source. It was located several kilometers outside of Agrees. She stopped flying when several explosions rocked the land. Looking down, Office was just in time to see Ise being blasted away by Hades's divine aura. The young man tumbled along the ground like a ragdoll. Vali was still fighting, but he was bleeding from numerous wounds and his armor was covered in cracks. Fenrir was also fighting. The beast capable of king gods with its fangs bit down on Hades's shoulder, but that didn't even deter the god of death, who slammed his staff into the wolf's torso. Power exploded and blood flew as Fenrir was launched clear into the sky. He hit the ground several dozen meters away and struggled to get up, but it was clear that the wound he'd received was bad. It probably would have killed anyone else. She flew down as Ise slowly pulled himself to his feet. His armor had broken in several places and it didn't look like he had enough power to repair it himself. It looks like you are having trouble. Shall I lend a hand? Ah, office. What are you doing here? I came to help. Where is Naruto? I thought you were with him. He is currently battling Yami in the dimensional gap. Now hold still while I repair your armor. Oh, thank you. Office touched his armor and sent her power into it, repairing the damage that had been done. It was easy since Isai's body had been created from a combination of Great Red's F and her power. Not only was the armor repaired good as new, but the wounds on his skin reknit themselves. Thank you. I feel much better now. You are welcome. You still intend to fight Hades now that you've been healed, yes? Of course. Then let me help you. How are you going to help me? While they were talking, Varley and Hades continued to battle it out. Hades swung his staff but it was dodged when Varley swerved his body around the attack. Yet he was unable to fully dodge as Hades's godly aura extended the range of his attacks. Varley grunted as he received a hit that shattered more of his armor, and though it was repaired, it mended far more slowly than it should have. We do not have much time, Office declared. What I am going to do is let you borrow my power to unlock the full potential of your new ability. Use it to defeat Hades. Okay, I don't know if I can actually beat him, but I'll definitely try my best. Office placed her hands on Isai's back and began channeling her power into him. She had a lot more now than she did before, so it took her a moment to properly infuse the power into Isai. She didn't want to make him explode. Meanwhile, Isai gasped as though in pain as the power of infinity flowed into his body, but he struggled to maintain his consciousness as he synchronized himself with the power. Bar dum, bar dum, bar dum, bar dum. A sound not unlike that of a beating heart echoed all around them. Office took a step back as Isai stood to his feet, power exploding from his body in waves. His armor was morphing, changing shape to accommodate this new power. It became a mixture of crimson and black as a second pair of dragon wings appeared on his back. His body also became bigger than it was when he used Crimson Cardinal promotion. The aura coming from him was far stronger than it ever had been. You are only going to have one shot at this, Office warned. Make it count. This was the first time Isai had ever used this form, so of course he didn't have control over it. He would have just one shot to defeat Hades. Got it. Isai dug the claws of his armored feet into the ground, bent his knees, and blasted off with a flap of his wings. Office blinked several times as dust flew everywhere. She reached out to keep her hair from blowing in her face. She didn't want to miss what was about to happen. Thanks to his speed, Isai was able to close the gap between him and Hades within an instant. The god of the S was unable to do anything as the young man rammed into him like a raging bull. Gyaaa. What the hell do you think you're doing? I'm kicking your ass. What's it look like I'm doing? You'd better prepare yourself, Hades, because this is gonna hurt like a mother bear. The gem on his chest glowed bright as a barrel shaped like a rocket launcher appeared from it. Power gathered within the launcher barely a second before it fired a massively destructive beam of energy, hitting Hades at point-blank range. The attack was so strong that it plowed right through Hades, tearing apart his godly aura and striking his skeleton body. Even Office, standing several dozen meters away, was hit by the aftershocks as they spread across the ground like a ripple. Hades wasn't the only one affected by the attack. Isai was hit by the destructive force as well, launched high into the air as he flew backward in a graceless parabolic arc. He struck the ground hard enough to leave a crater. Varley and Office wandered over to the young man as he lay in the crater. His armor had long since disappeared, revealing his battered and bloody figure. You okay? Asked Varley. Never been better. Isai lifted a shaky hand, made a fist, and extended his thumb. Well, you might not have controlled your power very well, but you managed to drive back Hades. While Hades was by no means he was obviously injured to the point where he couldn't fight. His left leg was gone, as was his right arm. The priestly robes he normally wore had been to shreds by the explosion and even his skeleton staff had cracks running through it. And yet while he had clearly sustained heavy injuries, the most important parts of his body had been protected, showing that he was able to put up a barrier at the very last second. More importantly, his malicious red eyes glowed balefully as he glared at them. I never expected you to have so much power. I cannot afford to let you live, but I cannot fight anymore, so I'll let you go for now. I say Hudo, one day I will destroy you. A dark portal opened underneath Hades' feet that he disappeared into. Office looked at Varley as the portal closed. I'm surprised you didn't try to K him before he could escape, she said. Varley smiled as the armor on his body fell away, revealing an exhausted face covered in blood, dirt, and sweat. I would if I had the strength, but I don't have any power left. Even if he's injured, Hades still had plenty of power left to fight with. And yet I'm still surprised. The old Varley would have tried anyway. Varley paused at that before nodding. Yes, I suppose the old Varley would have. Office looked back down at Ice to find the young man had fallen asleep. He had used even more power than Varley. What's more, he had synchronized his power and Drage's with her own for the first time ever. It was no wonder he had fallen asleep. Let's get back to the others, Office said at last. Okay, Varley agreed. You can carry Ice. Fine. Devil Ninja. Naruto and Yami's clash within the dimensional gap caused numerous spatial distortions. Whenever their fists connected, tears in space would ripple through the area and cause the colorful atmosphere to waver as if it was an illusion. It was like looking at the reflection on the surface of a pond before tossing a rock into it. Only this was 1,000 times more violent. Naruto threw out his fist, clicking his tongue as Yami tilted his head to avoid it, and then raised his leg to block the kick that came for his groin. His other half certainly fought dirty. But that was fine since Naruto did too. If you weren't cheating, you weren't trying. He pulled his arm back, latched onto the back of Yami's en, and drew him forward into a powerful headbutt. Gyaaa. I should have known you would try something like that. F that hurt. And yes, you should have. Naruto and Yami held their heads in mutual pain. They recovered quickly, but they didn't immediately engage in combat right away, eyeing each other warily instead. It appears we're now completely evenly matched, Yami said at last. Yeah, this sucks. Neither of us is going to win like this, Naruto agreed. Power erupted from them both at the same time. Naruto's body was encased in a golden aura and transformed into a massive fox with 10 tails, sharp claws, and fangs of gleaming gold. Yami turned into something even stranger. He looked like a large beast with the characteristics of a lion, a leopard, a bear, a dragon, and several other creatures. He had 7 heads and 7 long NS. Each head possessed 10 massive horns. Behind him were 10 long tails, each one shaped differently. With 4 stout arms, 2 legs that were thicker than its arms, and the torso of a primate leaning forward and covered in a combination of black fur and scales, this monster looked far more gratuitous than anything Naruto had ever seen. Naruto opened his mouth and gathered his chakra, forming a core of golden power within, which he fired once it reached critical mass. The Bayudama was still one of the strongest attacks in his arsenal and something he hadn't used in years because it killed indiscriminately. The attack never reached Yami. All 7 heads breathed out a massive flame that slammed into the Bayudama and destroyed it. An explosion erupted between the 2 fighters, though neither of them moved. Naruto bounded forward on all 4s, leapt into the air, and descended toward Yami, who howled as he swung one of his 10 tails. This one looked like a blade and it cut through the atmosphere just like one too. It struck Naruto in the side, tearing into his F, but the blonde-turned giant fox kaiju didn't pay attention to the pain this caused. He bit down on one of Yami's NS and tore its head clean off. The 2 once more leapt away from each other, both injured. Yet those injuries did not remain for long. The gash traveling down Naruto's torso quickly sealed back up as if it had never happened, while Yami's missing head grew back. Not only were Naruto and Yami still more or less evenly matched, but their power was such that neither of them would so easily. Every wound they inflicted on each other healed. Naruto lost an ear when one of Yami's tails severed it, but it grew right back. Yami's front left leg was removed when it was caught up in a Bayudama blast. It, too, grew back after a few seconds. Naruto snarled as he swiped his massive paw across one of Yami's many heads. Blood burst from the face, but the massive creature that his foe had transformed into didn't even seem to notice. Yami's 7 heads separated and turned into 7 different B. Naruto crouched low and all 10 of his tails burst around him and LD the 7B, but even though his attacks tore through them like a knife through butter, none of the B were actually destroyed. They merely regenerated and attacked him again. Since it didn't seem like physical attacks worked, Naruto fired off another Bayudama as he leapt backward to avoid being surrounded. One of the split B was engulfed in the power of his attack, but another one of the bee managed to sneak in close and bit down on his torso. His howl of pain was more like something he'd expect from a beast. It was fitting, though, considering what he had transformed into. Whirling around, Naruto swung all 10 of his tails to knock back the split bee. They flew across space before converging into one location and coming back together. The bee merged into one once more. This isn't getting us anywhere, Kurama said. Don't you think I know that? Even like this, we're still too evenly matched. I guess Trahexa really is incredibly powerful. I could have told you that. Anyway, how are we going to beat him? Ideally, I would like to seal Yami back inside of me and merge our souls together, but I somehow don't think he's going to give us the chance. To seal Yami, Naruto would need to create the seal that would absorb Yami and Trahexa, but that would require time and the ability to form hand seals. Neither of those were something Yami would give him. Hey. What is this? Do I see a couple of familiar faces? What are you guys doing in my backyard again? Naruto and Yami both turned toward the voice and found the familiar and massive form of Great Red barreling toward them. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.